Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1441A, and today's date is December 6th, 2017, and the title of the episode is The Manufacturing Situation in the U.S. is Much Worse Than Originally Thought. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded an interview with Jim Willie. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So all you need to do is go over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It will bring you right to the interview. Or you can come over to the X22Report.com site or the NewsSentinel.com site. Scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You'll see the video on the site. You can play it right on the site. Or go to Steemit. That's steemit.com/@X22 Report. The interview is right there. You can play it right on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, in previous reports, we talked about how the central banks, they have been planning to move everything from the west to the east. This just didn't happen overnight. We discussed this many, many times, where they started to move manufacturing overseas. And eventually what started to happen is everything started to move away from the United States because they knew the system that they created here would not last forever. Their systems that they use to basically put the world into debt only last around 40 to 45 years, and what they have to do afterwards is restart it. And what we're seeing right now is that they had to move manufacturing out of the United States to someplace else. And this was China and other Asian nations. Now remember, a lot of the things that we see stocked on our shelves in the out in the major retailers today, well, they are created someplace else. They're not created here in the United States. And right now, the United States is consuming far more wealth than we are producing. And that is a recipe for national economic suicide. Now, this week, we learned that imports from China hit an all-time record high in October. And that was one of the primary reasons why our trade deficit hit a staggering $48.7 billion during that month. Year after year, we buy far more stuff from the rest of the world than they buy from us. And when people hear deficit and people hear the trade deficit and all the talk that the government puts out there, people get confused of what is actually happening here. So let's put this in a more simplistic way of understanding what this all means. The amount of money that leaves our country each month is far greater than the amount of money that comes into it. And when you grasp this concept, it becomes easy to understand why major exporting nations such as China have become so wealthy and why we are drowning in debt. And we need to understand that since China joined the World Trade Organization in 2001, and it just so happened that we had an event in 2001, it just so happened that we entered the Middle East shortly thereafter, and we realize in 2008 the financial crisis hit. We understand that the central banks have been planning to move everything from the west to the east for a very long time right now. And when we look at manufacturing, the United States has lost more than 70,000 manufacturing facilities and millions, I'm talking millions, of good-paying manufacturing jobs. And it's going to be very difficult to bring those jobs back right now because it took many, many years for those jobs to be shipped overseas. Now, of course, the people working overseas, they got paid a lot less. And this was all part of the plan because they knew the country with the reserve currency, people were going to ask for more and more money. And there were emerging markets, third world countries that would get paid pennies on the dollar. And as the system broke down, as we saw, as we're still seeing, guess what? More and more has to be moved out of the system that's breaking down and into a new system that is just developing. This is what we've seen. This is what's happening right now. And the trade deficits are killing our long-term economic future. And the only way that we have been able to maintain our standard of living is by going on the greatest debt binge in human history. This whole thing was designed. It just didn't happen. It just didn't come out of the blue. It happened because the central bankers planned it. Those in power knew exactly what was going on. They knew the system was going to die. They knew they needed to create a new system, and they've been working on this for many, many years. This is why, and we discussed this before, this is why you see Russia and China. This is why they've been buying gold. This is why they recreated everything out in the East, which mimics everything out in the West. And they're wrapping it up right now. They're putting the final touches. They're creating a gold trading system. And we see right now they have established the One Belt, One Road trade system. Now, of course, we need to think back. The globalists, their plan was, yeah, who cares if everything is moved to another country? It makes no difference to us, because eventually what they wanted was a one world government where they controlled all the countries. How could they do this? Very easily. All you have to do is control the creation of currency and place a body above the government. This is what the TPP was going to do. It was going to place a court system which was above the level of the government, so it could instruct the governments on what to do. This was their plan, and basically bring all the nations to the same level so they can move workers back and forth. It didn't make a difference which country you went to, because everyone basically would be paid the same wages in the end. So right now, that system died. And here we are with a collapsing economy. And the central bankers right now, they've been preparing for this, but they thought, well, eventually what will happen is we'll just control the countries, everyone will be paid the same, and it won't be that big of a deal. We'll be able to cover this up, and nobody really could say anything because we can control everyone. Now, that's not the case, because many things have happened since then. We have cryptocurrencies where many countries are looking at cryptocurrencies and saying, you know something, we don't need the dollar. Maybe we don't even need the petro-yuan. Maybe we don't even need the central banks. And all that they have done was actually destroyed the U.S. The U.S. was destroyed by the hands of the central bankers. And it's going to be very difficult to get everything back here. It's not going to happen overnight because it took many, many years to ship it off to other countries. And what we're seeing right now is that the system that we're in is slowly dying. And these central bankers, they're keeping it on life support. And when something is on life support, there's no other function. It just continues on and nothing happens. And this is what's happening to the economy. This is why you don't see anything really happening. Everything is just static. Because the central bankers realize if they do anything, where maybe they shut off life support, the economy crashes. If they try to do anything or change something, the economy crashes. So they're very scared. They're very nervous. They don't want to change anything. They don't want to rattle anything until they can explain away why the economy is crashing. Because remember, they've convinced the world, they convinced the population that the economies are strong, the banks are strong, everything is great. They convinced us by manipulating all these numbers. And if it crashes, well, that means they lied. And this is something they don't want. And this is why they're pushing for something else to happen to distract from this great collapse that we're headed towards. Actually, we're already in a recession. Nobody just wants to admit it. They're just continually manipulating the numbers, pretending that everything is fine. But from every single indicator that we see, the whole thing is coming apart very, very quickly. And I believe in 2018, it's going to accelerate like we've never seen before. Because look what happened during the year of 2017 with the amount of stores, with the amount of manipulation they had to do to the GDP numbers, to the unemployment numbers. I mean, they're just out there saying, oh, unemployment now is down to 4%, 3.9%. I mean, they could drop it to 2%. It doesn't really make a difference. With all these stores closing and all these corporations lying about their revenue and profits and all the tax receipts continually declining that are going into the federal government, they don't have a leg to stand on. All they're doing is manipulating everything. Actually, Bank of America is out there, and they're saying that every market shock since 2013, the central banks stepped in to protect the markets. They actually just pumped it back up because they didn't want the market to fall. Because if the market fell, and guess what? The system would come down. People would be scratching their head. Why is the market coming down if the economy is doing great? And then once the market comes down, people would recognize that there are problems. Just like in 2008. Wait, the subprime securities, that was a lie? Wait a minute. Real estate is dropping? These companies need what? A bailout? They need cash or they go under? AIG needs not one, not two, but 3 bailouts? And if they don't get it, they're hooked to other corporations? The same thing's going to happen this time. If they let the stock market go, the derivatives are going to go implode. The bond market's going to implode. Companies are going to start laying off like crazy. The entire illusion will unravel. And they won't be able to explain why it's unraveling the way it is unless they have some type of distraction. And this is why every single time since 2013, the central banks stepped in and they protected the market by pumping it back up. This is why they established a trading desk in the basement of the Fed. It's actually just a computer and they just keep pushing a button. But they do this to make everyone believe that this is an open free market and everything is great. This is why the Swiss are buying the FANG stocks, Apple, because you need buyers. The everyday person's not out there buying this stuff. Not in the quantity they needed to make the stock market continually move up. This is why the banks were given the free money and they were told, don't lend it out to the public. Put it back into the market. Pump it up. So right now, this illusion is about to come down. They're trying to keep it the way it is. And eventually what's going to happen, something out of left field, out of right field, is going to hit. And one little thing is going to completely bring everything down. They will not be able to stop it. And they won't be able to explain it. And this is why they're trying to control the entire situation. Because they want to make the move to their new system. And they need a way to explain it where they're not to blame. And this is what they're trying to figure out right now. So what everyone needs to do is you need to be prepared and ready. You need food, you need water, you need supplies. And we've said this many times before. Remember, when this hits, you're going to see inflation. The credit market's going to freeze up. Supplies to the shelves, it's not going to happen. Trucking's going to break down. And you're going to need supplies to survive. You're going to need cash on hand because that's the only thing people know. Eventually, you'll move into bartering. Eventually, you'll need the gold and silver, not to trade, but to ensure your wealth. You'll need cryptocurrencies because if we do move into the cryptocurrency market as the currency, at least you'll have currency on hand at the time when it's being used. You'll say, okay, I have it, I can trade it in, we can go and buy some stuff. The gold and silver, eventually, people will look at this and say, okay, I bought it for $1,100 gold or $16 or $17 in silver, and now it's increasing like there's no tomorrow, just like the crypto market. And this will protect your wealth because those dollars will lose value. Gold and silver will increase in value because the manipulation will disappear. And we can see that we are getting closer and closer to this point because, as we can see, the people's economy is breaking down. So you need to be ready and prepared for this. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.